Have you ever been pushed over by an idea? Not a hand, not a shove, but by the sheer unstoppable force of a truth you could no longer stand up against? We've all felt the weight of consequences, the domino effect of a single, careless decision. Welcome back to Tales of Wonder. If you enjoy stories about the quiet power that moves the world, the kind that doesn't need fists or fury, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell, because the most profound lessons often come from the most unexpected teachers. Now, let's begin today's story. Our story begins not in a mist-shrouded temple on a remote mountain peak, but in the heart of a grimy, perpetually damp city. This is a place of concrete and compromise, where ambition is the local currency, and disappointment hangs in the air like the smell of old rain and fried food. And in this urban jungle, our protagonist, Leo, was a certified mouse. Leo wasn't just unassuming. He was professionally invisible. A mid-level data analyst at a soul-crushing corporation called Synergistic Dynamics. His life was a symphony in beige. His khaki pants were perpetually wrinkled, his posture a permanent question mark, and his most assertive gesture was a hesitant, two-fingered wave from across the open-plan office. He was the guy who got talked over in meetings, the one whose lunch was accidentally taken from the shared fridge, the human doormat upon which the polished shoes of his more aggressive colleagues happily wiped their feet. His arch-nemesis was Brenda from marketing. Brenda wasn't evil, not in a cartoonish way. She was a force of nature, a hurricane of peroxide and passive aggression. She was the queen of the backhanded compliment, the master of the credit-stealing email chain. If Leo had an idea, Brenda would present it as her own with such dazzling confidence that everyone, including Leo for a moment, would believe it was hers all along. She didn't push people. She just occupied space so completely that others had no choice but to make way for her. Leo's home life was a mirror of his professional one. He lived in a small apartment that smelled faintly of his neighbor aggressively pungent cabbage soup. His love life was a graveyard of first dates that never progressed to seconds, usually because he agreed so fervently with everything his date said that he became a human echo, a featureless reflection with no opinions of his own. He was, in a word, pushable. One Tuesday, after a particularly egregious incident where Brenda had not only taken credit for his quarterly report, but had also somehow managed to get him assigned to organize the office Christmas party in July, Leo hit his own personal rock bottom. He was sitting in a drab public park, listlessly tossing gravel at a pigeon, when he saw it. Taped to a lamppost, slightly frayed at the edges, was a handwritten flyer. It wasn't flashy. The paper was a simple, off-white cardstock. The calligraphy, however, was breathtaking. Each character was a masterpiece of balance and flow, as if the ink had been laid down not by a hand, but by a breath. The Garden of Quiet Strength, it read. Are you tired of being moved by the world? Learn to be the unmovable center. Evenings, 7 p.m., the Jade Rabbit Tea House. Ask for Master Rome. It sounded like the kind of thing a charlatan would peddle to desperate people. But Leo was desperate. The words unmovable center resonated in his soul like a gong. He wasn't looking to become a superhero. He just wanted to stop feeling like he was made of tissue paper. The Jade Rabbit Tea House was tucked away in a forgotten alley, a place the city's relentless modernization had somehow missed. The air inside was thick with the scent of aged pear and sandalwood. It was quiet. The silence felt not empty, but full, like a held breath. Behind a low, lacquered counter stood an old man. Master Rome was underwhelming. Leo had expected a wizened ancient with a long, white beard and eyes that sparkled with cosmic wisdom. Master Rome looked like a retired accountant. He was short, slight, with a bald head fringed with wisps of white hair, and he wore a simple, gray linen jacket. His movements, however, were unnerving. There was no wasted motion. When he poured the tea, the stream was a perfect, unbroken arc. The pot landed back on the heater without a sound. He was stillness incarnate. "You're here about the flyer," Master Rome said. It wasn't a question. His voice was soft, but it carried in the quiet room with the clarity of a bell. Leo stammered out his woes. Brenda, the office, his life of quiet desperation. Master Roan listened, his expression unreadable. When Leo finished, the old man simply nodded. You speak of being pushed, Master Roan said, taking a slow sip of his tea. You think the push is physical. It is not. The body is just the final messenger. The push begins in the mind. A harsh word, a dismissive glance, a stolen idea. These are the true hands that shove you. You have no root. You are a leaf in their wind. He set his cup down. What I teach is Neigong, internal skill. It is not about making your fists hard. It is about making your spirit unshakable. It is about developing a root so deep that no storm can topple you. Leo was skeptical, but the old man's calm was infectious. And can this Neigong, can it be used to, he lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Knock someone down? Without touching them. Master Roang's eyes crinkled at the corners. It was almost a smile. A tree does not need to touch the acorn to knock it over. It simply grows, and its shadow does the work. To topple a man without contact, that is the highest expression of this art. It is not an attack. It is a consequence. That was all Leo needed to hear. He signed up on the spot, picturing Brenda from marketing flying backwards through a glass office wall with a satisfying crash. He was going to learn the secret of invisible power. The lessons were nothing like Leo expected. There were no dramatic stances, no screaming key eyes, no breaking of bricks. The first lesson was on breathing. Not just inhaling and exhaling, but a specific, maddeningly slow, diaphragmatic breath. Master Roang had him lie on a tatama mat and place a small, smooth river stone on his stomach. Breathe, the master instructed. Make the stone rise and fall. Not with your chest, with your center, your dantian. For 2 hours, Leo lay there, his mind screaming with boredom, his back aching, while the old man sat silently in a corner, sipping tea. The stone barely wobbled. Leo left frustrated, convinced he'd wasted his money. The next lesson was on posture. Your body is a vessel for your intention, Master Roang said, gently correcting the slump in Leo's shoulders. If the vessel is cracked and misaligned, the intention leaks out. You must be integrated, whole. They worked on how he stood, walked, and sat. It was exhausting. Leo felt more self-conscious than ever. At work, he tried to sit with a straight spine and end up with a sore back. He tried to breathe from his dantian during a budget meeting and nearly hyperventilate. The escalation in his mundane life, however, was immediate and brutal. Brenda, sensing a subtle shift in his energy, perhaps he was just a fraction less pliable, doubled down. She jokingly referred to him as her assistant in front of the CEO. She assigned him the task of cleaning the break room microwave, a chore so foul it was considered a form of hazing for new interns. Leo's frustration with his training grew. He confronted Master Roang. This is useless. Breathing? Posture? I need to learn how to handle Brenda. I need the touchless knockout. Master Roang looked at him with what could only be described as pity. You're trying to fill a cup that is still full. Your cup is full of fear, of resentment, of your own self-doubt. Until you empty it, I can pour nothing of value into you. The power you seek does not come from adding a technique. It comes from subtracting the weakness. He handed Leo a broom. Sweep the floor. What? Sweep the floor. But do not just sweep. Be the sweeping. Your entire mind, your entire intention, must be in the motion of the broom. There is no Leo. There is no Brenda. There is only the sweep. It was absurd. It was infuriating. But something in the old man's tone brooked no argument. So Leo swept. He swept the tea house floor every evening for a week. And somewhere around the 4th day, a strange thing happened. His mind, usually a chaotic storm of anxieties, quieted. There was just the whisper of the bristles on wood, the rhythm of his breath, the gentle ache in his shoulders. For a few minutes at a time, he stopped being Leo the doormat. He was just a function, a process. A subtle shift began to occur, almost imperceptible at first. He started finishing his sentences without his voice trailing off into a question. He began holding eye contact for a half-second longer. He stopped prefacing every opinion with "this might be a stupid idea, but The change was seismic at synergistic dynamics. People started noticing, not in a dramatic way, but they noticed. His boss, Mr. Henderson, once paused after Leo gave a concise, direct answer and said, "Huh, good point, Leo." It was the first direct praise he'd received in years. Brenda, of course, escalated further. The conflict was intensifying, moving from cold to hot war. She transitioned from passive aggression to active sabotage. She accidentally deleted a crucial file from a shared project he was leading. The old Leo would have panicked, worked all night to recreate it, and said nothing. The new Leo, the one who had been learning to breathe, felt a surge of anger. But instead of it being a chaotic, trembling rage, it was a cold, solid thing in his center. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He simply walked to her office, stood in her doorway with his new, surprisingly erect posture, and said in a calm, even tone, "Brenda, the Q3 projections file is missing from the server. The backup logs show it was deleted from your terminal at 4:15 p.m. yesterday. I need you to recover it from your local recycle bin and re-upload it within the hour, or I will have to note the delay in my project report to the board." He didn't threaten. He stated facts. He held his ground. And for the first time, Leo saw a flicker of something in Brenda's eyes. It wasn't fear, not quite. It was confusion. The leaf was no longer blowing in her wind. It was just standing there, unmoving. She sputtered an excuse, but she recovered the file. It was a tiny victory, but for Leo, it was a revelation. He hadn't touched her. He hadn't even raised his voice. But he had, in a very real sense, pushed back. He returned to Master Rome, excited. "It worked. I stood my ground. I used my route." Master Rome simply nodded, as if he'd been told the tea was ready. "Good. The route is establishing. Now we begin the real work." The real work was even more infuriatingly abstract. Master Rome began teaching him about listening intent and projecting energy. It sounded like pure hokum. They would stand facing each other, and Master Rome would have Leo close his eyes. "Feel my presence," the old man would say. "Do not see me. Feel me. Now, I'm going to raise my hand. Do not open your eyes. Tell me when you feel the intention in my hand to move." It was impossible. Leo felt nothing but foolish. But he persisted. Weeks turned into months. And then, one evening, something clicked. He felt a subtle pressure in the air, a shift in the space between them, a fraction of a second before he heard the rustle of Master Rome's sleeve. "Now," Leo said, and opened his eyes. Master Rome's hand was indeed raised. It was a breakthrough. They practiced for hours. Leo learned to sense the tiny, almost imperceptible cues that preceded an action. The slight shift in weight, the micro-expression of intent on a face, the change in breathing. Master Rome called it reading the chi, but to Leo, it felt like he was just learning to pay attention on a level he never knew existed. The final test came at the office. The company was pitching a massive, make-or-break client. Omni Corporation. Brenda, of course, was leading the presentation, which was built almost entirely on the analytical framework Leo had developed. He was relegated to a seat in the back, a silent observer. The presentation was a disaster. Brenda was all flash and no substance, her confidence outstripping her comprehension. The clients, a stern-faced panel of executives, grew increasingly restless. Their leader, a formidable woman named Ms. Davina Shrike, finally held up a hand. "Stop," she said, her voice like shattering ice. "Your slides are pretty, Ms. Brenda, but you're just reading the words on them. You don't understand the underlying data. This model, for instance." She pointed a laser pointer at the core of Leo's work. "What is the foundational assumption here? Walk me through the logic." Brenda froze. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. She looked at her notes, then back at the screen, panic flooding her features. The silence in the room was agonizing. This was it. The company would lose the account. Brenda would throw Leo under the bus, but he would still go down with her. And then Leo felt it. It was the same feeling he'd practiced with Master Rome. He felt Brenda's intention to crumble. He felt her desire to deflect, to blame, to collapse in on herself. He saw the subtle shift in her posture, the almost invisible tremor in her hand as she prepared to point at him and say, it was his model. In that moment, Leo didn't think. He acted. He didn't stand up. He didn't shout. He simply took a slow, deep breath, centering himself. He straightened his spine, feeling that unshakable root Master Rome had spoken of. And then, he projected. He focused his entire being, his entire understanding of the situation, into a single, calm, unwavering gaze directed at Ms. Shrike. He pushed with his mind. Not a physical push, but a push of clarity, of unassailable truth. And then he spoke. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the panicked silence like a scalpel. The foundational assumption, Leo said, is that consumer behavior is not linear, but cyclical and emotionally driven. The data doesn't follow a straight line. It follows the rhythm of confidence and fear. Every head in the room swiveled to look at him. Brenda looked like she'd been struck by lightning. Miss Shrike's sharp eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in intense curiosity. Go on, she commanded. Leo stood and walked to the front of the room. He didn't look at Brenda, who shrank back, pale and silent. He stood before the Omni-Core board, his posture perfect, his breath even. For the next 20 minutes, he deconstructed his own model with the quiet authority of someone who had built it from the ground up. He explained the data, the logic, the potential pitfalls, the stunning opportunities. He wasn't selling. He was simply explaining a profound truth he understood completely. He was in that moment the unmovable center. When he finished, there was another silence. This one was different. It was respectful, awed. Miss Shrike slowly began to nod. Then she started to clap. A single, sharp clap. Then the rest of her team joined in. They got the account. Not because of Brenda's flash, but because of Leo's substance. Because of his unshakable, undeniable competence. Later that day, Mr. Henderson called Leo into his office. Brenda was already there, sitting in a chair, looking deflated. Leo, Mr. Henderson began, what you did in there was remarkable. It saved the company. Effective immediately, you were promoted to senior data strategist. You'll be leading the OmniCorp account directly. Leo felt a surge of triumph. But the real twist was yet to come. As he was leaving the office, Brenda followed him out. Her face was a mask of confusion and something else, something like dawning respect, mixed with sheer bewilderment. How did you do that, Leo? She asked, her voice uncharacteristically small. You didn't even move. You didn't say a word to me. But when you looked at that woman and started speaking, it was like I got hit by a truck. I felt knocked over. I literally had to grab the table to stay standing. She stared at him, utterly mystified. It was like you pushed me without even touching me. Leo looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see a monster. He saw a scared, insecure person who used bluster to hide her own fragility. He had developed such a profound root, such a powerful presence, that her own instability had become her downfall. His strength hadn't toppled her. It had simply revealed that she had been standing on a foundation of sand all along. He had mastered the touchless knockout, not by learning to push, but by learning to stand. Leo's life was transformed. The promotion came with a significant raise, and with it, a newfound confidence that permeated everything. He moved out of the cabbage-scented apartment and into a bright, airy loft. He started dating a witty graphic designer who loved that he actually listened when she spoke. He was no longer a leaf, he was a tree. He continued his studies with Master Rome, not for vengeance or power, but for the simple, profound joy of the practice itself. The art of Neigong, he learned, was not a weapon. It was a tool for living, for being more present, more grounded, more wholly yourself. Brenda, ironically, became one of his most loyal team members. Stripped of her ability to bully him, and faced with his unwavering, calm authority, she had no choice but to actually do her job, and do it well. She discovered, to her own surprise, that she was quite good at it when she wasn't spending all her energy on political games. They never became friends, but they developed a functional, even productive, professional relationship. Justice was not her being fired. It was her being forced to confront the mediocre professional she had been and choose to become better. One evening, over a cup of exquisitely brewed tea, Leo finally asked Master Rome the question that had been burning in him since his victory. Master, he said, the touchless knockout. What is it, really? I didn't use any mystical energy. I just stood up and spoke the truth. Master Rome smiled, a genuine, warm smile that transformed his entire face. And what is more powerful than that, Leo? You finally understand. The secret is not a secret at all. It is alignment. When your mind, your body, your intention, and the truth are all in perfect alignment, you become an unstoppable force. You are no longer fighting the world. You are in harmony with it. Your opponent is not defeated by you. They're defeated by their own resistance to the reality you are presenting. He poured more tea. You did not push Brenda. Her own lifetime of bluster, her fragile ego, her house of cards, that is what pushed her. You were merely the unmovable stone she ran into. The power of Neigong is the power of authenticity. It is the courage to be so completely, unapologetically yourself that the world has no choice but to adjust to you. The lesson was complete. The internal secret was out. It had been inside him all along. So, the next time you see a master of some ancient art perform a miracle, or you feel pushed around by a bully, or you even feel yourself about to crumble under pressure, remember Leo's story. Remember that the most profound power in the universe isn't about moving mountains. It's about becoming the mountain. And then, ask yourself this chilling question, the one that changes everything. What if the legendary mystical power to knock a man down without touching him is nothing more than the terrifying, world-altering strength of simply never letting them knock you down in the first place? What is the one unmovable truth in your own life that, if you stood by it completely, would change everything for you? If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of the quiet power we all hold within, then do me a favor. Give this video a like and share your own thoughts and stories in the comments below. I read every single one. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to Tales of Wonder for more journeys into the heart of what makes us human. Until next time, remember, your greatest strength is already inside you. You just have to learn how to stand. See you in the next video.